were other women who'd come before me in different roles, hosting shorter shows or maybe pre-recorded, and I don't want to overlook the achievements of anyone, but that showed tremendous faith and feminist ways of the men that hired me. To me, someone who makes you laugh is fantastic. To realise just the joy of being a goose. I also learned quite a long time ago, and I'm not practising it now, you can pretty much wear anything if you've got good posture. I really kind of yearn for the nostalgic times, not so much in terms of reality TV, but I liked knowing that nobody was trying to steal my bank details. My generation was raised to be superwomen. We had to have it all and do it all, and really we were crumpled heaps.
Gretel Killeen, welcome to the Stellar Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
You are returning to primetime television very soon, hosting the Traitors. Let me ask you about stepping back into the spotlight. You step in and out of the spotlight, it seems, from afar in terms of your media career. How does it feel to get back out there at that level again?
I'm a lot older now, and by older I mean a lot of experiences have occurred. And I think the fame that I experienced with the first Big Brother that we did was so enormous and so unrelatable nowadays because there are so many more people in the spotlight. There weren't many women in that position. I was young, single mum. I didn't think I was young at the time, but in retrospect I was young. So this is karma. There are so many more hosts now too. So I feel like I'm sharing the spotlight. It's not so much what's she eating, where did she, all of that business that who's she with, what are they doing? There were paparazzi all over the place, and I just feel a little bit more separated from that. We were all in shock during that.
It was 25 years ago that you hosted Big Brother. It was really the start, I would argue, and I'm sure you've heard this observed countless times over that 25 years, the start really of what we would consider the reality TV phenomenon in Australia. It's spoken a lot about how none of those first contestants had any idea what was waiting for them when they came back out onto that stage at the Gold Coast after being evicted. But for you weren't the contestant, but you were the first person there and the last person to turn the lights off after they'd left the house. Did you have any idea what was waiting on the other side?
None of us did. I think to kind of put that in perspective, which is, it's kind of unimaginable now, but we didn't have YouTube, for example. So nobody, unless you were in England, for example, when the show first went to air there, you'd have no idea what it was. Facebook didn't exist. Remember, in those days, if you wanted to text, you had to press A 4 times to get D and all of that business. But the other things, people often think about that it was the first reality show, but there were firsts otherwise too. To have a female hosting, like that was unheard of. Not as a sidekick, but as to be hosting a live show. That's enormous. I remember when I was first asked if I wanted to audition for it, I coincidentally had been speaking to someone who was an actor during that time because I was a voice artist during that time, and they were telling me, casting people, they get numbers in because they have to get a certain number of people in, but most of them they're not serious about. And I remember thinking, I'm 38, I've got dark hair, there's no way, and I'm a woman, there's no way in the world they're going to want me, because I thought 38 was too old and you had to have blonde hair to be a host. And those were kind of the parameters in those days. So it was the first reality TV experience of that size, but also with a live audience. The way that shows were thrown in, we could start a week with 3 shows and end up with 5. They would run long. There were so many rules that were broken in a really positive way and a fun way. It was very empowering, and I think sometimes people don't realise for the country to be looking at any woman with that position and authority and trust is really big. But it doesn't necessarily mean I felt that level of power and control, but externally, it did mean people were growing up thinking, okay, well, that's an acceptable ambition for women. When I was first doing voiceovers, there used to be a theory that men got 8 times the amount of voiceover work than women. This was when I was young, like in my early 20s. We got the same money per hour, but men got 8 times as much work. This was the theory, because men didn't want to hear women's voices on the radio or on television ads.
The talkback radio argument, yes.
Yeah, because it reminded them of their wives or their mothers nagging.
God forbid.
Yeah, yeah. Well, if you did it in the first place, we wouldn't have to nag. But the point was that was the world that we'd come from. So these little steps, the reality TV is a really important side of it, but also what it was saying to society, I think, is important.
I completely agree with all of that. And not only everything that you've spoken about there and the visibility of someone like that, but you were opinionated and sharp and quick on your feet. You asked difficult questions. So you really were breaking down, I think, a lot of doors metaphorically.
Yeah, unconsciously. And there were other women who'd come before me in different roles. Hosting shorter shows or maybe pre-recorded, and I don't want to overlook the achievements of anyone, but that showed tremendous faith and feminist ways of the men that hired me. Mm-hmm. That, I really,
it's true.
Because I don't want to be giving praise where it isn't deserved, but it is deserved here, because men had to support women to make those first steps. And there were men supporting me. And who not only did that, but they weren't hovering. Like, there were times where I'm not even sure if people asked me what questions I was going to ask people. I don't know if that happens in television anymore. I mean, we had a hoot with our show, but ours is a hoot of a show. But I think to trust someone's mind and to let them explore, that's really a joyful thing. We live in quite restrictive times, I think.
How did that responsibility sit with you, Gretel? Because I remember watching and thinking there were moments where you seemed unflappable.
I can remember when we were rehearsing the first eviction. And when you're rehearsing that, obviously you don't know who's coming out and you don't know what's going to happen. You've got to have a package organised in your mind, and the fabulous troops have edited these packages depending on who goes. So everybody's kind of lined up. So it's really a camera rehearsal and to check audios when you'll stand here for this and there for that. And I can remember at that first one thinking, oh, wow, we really need a leader during this rehearsal. And then I thought, it's me. And I'd never thought like that in my life, but no, I just kind of knew what to do. I mean, other people might have said, no, she doesn't, but I'm much more self-assured in a role like that than probably in day-to-day life. I know some people think if they're public speaking in front of 200 people, it's different to speaking in front of 10. We had 2,000 live there and then 2 million usually for a live show watching us in those days. The numbers didn't matter because you're always going to do your best. But it was, to me, it's a really interesting contrast because I have far more uncertainty about my own personal life than my capabilities on stage. I don't know why that happens. There's like a chasm.
And do you remember there being a time as a young adult or in the early stages of your career where that clicked into you, where you thought, I feel a bit more capable or confident?
No, actually, it occurred to me only just then. It occurred to me then because I've always had faith in my abilities. It's whether other people have faith in your abilities. And other people can open the world to you or close it to you. So you're blessed with your certain talents and you hopefully have the confidence to pursue them, but confidence is another blessing. Maybe you've got people encouraging you, another blessing. Then the opportunity's got to be there. That's luck. But to have someone that says, welcome, come on in, now I find that sometimes people are a bit more threatened by their position. They don't necessarily want to open the door for other people. This is only through observation because luckily I'm not in the thick of it anymore. But no, there wasn't a moment until now that I realised actually I'm more confident working.
Well, it's an observation that I think really resonates with me, and certainly a lot of the people that I've had the privilege of talking to on this podcast, as you know, are some of the most high-profile people in Australia and internationally, and they can feel different shades of lacking their capacity or just levels of shyness. And I know people can be cynical about that. People can be like, how on earth could Nicole Kidman be shy? But she really is.
Yeah.
There's something sometimes about developing a persona or whatever your job is, just having that switch where you're like, I'm on, we got to go. And you'll dig deep, and wherever it comes from, it comes to the fore.
I do think for certain kinds of performances and artists, a vulnerability and a level of exposure is, skin exposure is where you get your material from. Stand-up comics, artists, photographers, all of those have to be open to receiving these things, which is a very painful level of exposure to live in. And not everyone has to keep themselves vulnerable like that. But I think it's a pretty human condition otherwise. People are enduring things in their office spaces that they don't have the chance to come on here and discuss. But I'm sure they're thinking, my boss makes me feel like crap, and why don't my ideas ever get forward, and I don't like my title for my job, it diminishes, whatever it is.
Completely agree.
Yeah.
I think it is a really universal experience, and because it's also, I think, something that we try to instill in children. I mean, our own children, but at a social level, it's hard to pass on that lesson that, we have different names for it, don't we? As in, there can be the quite harsh old school thing of like, just buck up, like put your game face on, all the way through to sort of fake it till you make it. You might not feel like going to school today and doing that big presentation, but just do it and then the confidence will come. I think it's all sort of the same conversation, isn't it?
I agree, but I have to say one of the great joys, really, truly great joys in my life have been when people have said to me, go with it. Whether it's a children's book I wrote many years ago when I was trying to financially support my children, along with the voiceovers. And I wanted to make the fonts different sizes, and nobody had done that before, or designing a book cover, and I wasn't a designer, or doing stand-up or whatever these things were. When people have said, which is what has happened in Traitors as well, yes, go for it. I mean, can you imagine? To me, it's like a horse that can run fast being told, here you are, we're in the paddock, it's open. You run as fast as you can and enjoy that feeling of reaching what you're capable of doing. And I really feel that sometimes people don't know the life experiences and opportunities and joys that they can offer someone just by saying, you know what, let's explore that rather than no. So I'm really, really grateful for those. They're often hard fought. And the ones that turn up are usually magical and not hard fought at all. Like sometimes when you pursue something and you want to make it happen, it just totally doesn't happen. And then you'll get a weird phone call or someone will see you performing something embarrassing there, but it leads to this. I'm really grateful for those people who have the confidence in themselves to not be threatened by letting you be who you are.
I think it pays for us to keep that in mind, doesn't it? When we're having an opportunity ourselves to maybe put somebody else on a different path or present something in front of them that might not seem logical or might be a little out of their comfort zone, and at the risk of sounding twee, like what a gift to give one another.
Yeah, and it's one of the amazing things to when you work in the arts, it's very spit and smoke and mirrors, but not having a budget for things leads to such an extraordinary imagination journey, and it encourages other people. I know that there are classes and courses, and some offices do this, let's think outside the box. well, you need to think there isn't even a box. There isn't. There's just, how are we going to put on this show for $7.50? How are we going to make this work? And the joy of bouncing, no ideas are silly. It's, to me, that I think the expression of creativity for anyone, that freedom, just leads to so many opportunities for everyone involved.
That's a nice silver lining for those of us working in industries where the budgets are constantly contracting, because sometimes we do have a box and $7 to play with. So it's nice to know when you come out the other side of it that you have created magic and learnt a lesson for next time.
Having said that, I don't want this to be a justification for no budgets. How many conversations begin with, we don't have much of a budget? And I was thinking the other day, well, where did the money go? Like, it didn't burn in a big pile.
Where did it go, Gretel?
Where did it go? It went to people higher up. Everybody's kind of sacrificing bits and bobs so that fewer people can have more money. The money hasn't disappeared. That's why there isn't much money, because somebody else wants to make more money at your expense.
You spoke earlier about your work as an early artist and voiceover artist and being a single mother, raising 2 children. How did the experience of Big Brother change your life in practical ways?
Well, we were blessed in that it was really only about 12 weeks a year, so that was amazing. It's the public exposure that affects your life more than anything. And I read something recently where a musician was saying nobody wants to be famous who is famous. It's the bit of their life that they would like to not have. It can carry over you like a bit of a shadow, or enter a room before you. It can stop people being normal around you. I don't feel like that now. I'm reminiscing about that, and I think I'm more aware of it. That kind of world, in many industries, you learn not to trust people, and you try and trust your gut instincts, but then you can't remember what they are. Sometimes you forget who you are. I saw Jessica Malboy was talking about finding her voice again. She articulated it differently, but I know that I certainly went through a time a little while ago where I was doing a public reading of some material I wrote when I was 20, and I thought, where did she go? And so that to me was really interesting, and how responsibilities, and you start to second guess yourself. And I mentioned somewhere recently you start to dress differently, and I certainly started to dress differently, to not be seen, to not be noticed.
Seen.
And I really loved dressing, but no, I wanted to be invisible and not noticed at all. So I notice now and I think this is a bit of a milestone to answer your question, your first question, how perhaps is it different this time? To me, that's a physical manifestation of feeling more comfortable in my skin, that now I don't really mind. I know more who I am, and I'm an op shop wearer since I was, 18 or something. I love op shops, and now I wear them with a no right or wrong concept, perspective. And I think that's a bit of a telltale sign.
And by the way, you have a great eye for op shopping.
Thank you. It's I also learned quite a long time ago, and I'm not practicing it now. You can pretty much wear anything. You can pretty much wear anything if you've got good posture. Like you can just get away with things.
I just thought,
that's what I thought too.
Do you have good posture then?
No, not until I just said that. Now suddenly I miraculously do. You wear it with confidence. There's no right or wrong. I know that I used to get criticised for what I was wearing. I mean, we would be putting on a live show. It's entertainment. We're wearing a costume. It's not what I'm going to wear down the street. But having said that, then I would meet some of the people who were the fashion writers, and I'd think, but what are you wearing? Like, that's unimaginative. That's exactly what's in the shop. This season, everyone's wearing this. If I see something that is this season, everyone's wearing this, I would never wear it.
I know.
Are you the same?
I am actually. I hate when something that you love is suddenly in fashion.
It's interesting, isn't it, how some people are yearning to have their own voice, and some people are yearning to have the same voice as everybody else.
Yeah.
That's my idea of a nightmare, but it's probably the secret to a lot of happiness nooks in life.
Also, I think, do you think with your observation before about how there was a time when you were less comfortable with everyone knowing who you were, and in those early stages of that fame, that's something you've relaxed into and you more wanted to be anonymous. That's also probably to do with how we're feeling about ourselves at any given time.
I think one of the great things about getting older, one of the terrible things is friends around you start to get ill and pass away, but you have a metronome constantly ticking, telling you, make the most of this because you don't know how long you've got. And many philosophers around the world and religions and, I don't know, influencers, but maybe them as well, talk about be you, be who you are. I remember there was a fable, was it a fable? Parable, really, that I came across, and it was about a person going to heaven and this person had really tried to fulfill the expectations of the perfect person. And in this, their God was disappointed with them and just said, why weren't you more you? And I think for me, I think it's connected for people feeling depressed and anxious in life because they're hobbled and that not really being who they are. Like, we're suffocating and there are so many rules that we have to fit into now. So I think part of it is that clock that is both frightening but also liberating, if not now when. Like, let's have some fun. And the other one is we live in such a serious time. Having fun wherever you can is important.
Well, there's a lot of fun had on the Traitors, so let me ask you about it. So first of all, maybe that bit about you, Gretel Killeen, because you're playing a very heightened version of yourself as host of this show. She's described as a murderous mistress of the manor. How do you tackle hosting this role in terms of drawing a character but also bringing yourself?
I think a lot of artists of any sort, once again, will tell you that things come to them and they don't know where they came from. And when I was asked to host this, I was, of course, on a professional level aware that I didn't want to draw immediate comparisons, not just to other hosts, but other female hosts around the world, because so many countries have this. But Channel 10 and the production company were really open to this scrapbook that I created, which was a backstory of the host. And this is not a common thing to do. In fact, I don't know that anyone else in the world ever did it. But as a writer, I thought, where does she come from? She lives in this house and people die. Why has she never gone to jail? And who does she live with and how does she afford it? So this whole backstory, because I've written a lot of books, just flowed naturally, and it was really fun to do. A scrapbook. What a fun way to write a book. It was her background and her husbands and wives and her childhood and the clothes that she would wear. So we included all her wardrobe and her looks. And so that's where it came from. I know this sounds odd, but I actually know it's absolutely true, and maybe you've experienced it as well, that sometimes these things just come through you. And once again, I was given permission, and I'm so grateful to 10 and SPP, they're the production company, because they said, yeah, let's do it. Because that's been one of the joys of my life. Yeah, let's have fun and just be silly.
Well, I was going to ask where the different parts of your career and your background they seem like they've really come together in a really natural way in this role. And I hadn't thought so much about the writing aspect to that degree of doing the backstory. And I agree with what you say, Gretel. I think if anyone's ever written anything, whether it's like at an amateur level, just people doing a journal, all the way through to published authors, screenwriters, playwrights, people do say things just take on a voice of their own.
Yeah. Well, Bob Dylan were referred to some of his songs and he doesn't know where they came from or if he could ever do them again. And I feel with this, she just created herself. And I guess part of it is that process that we've talked about of starting to feel more liberated, not really caring. As you get older, you do realise that a lot of the paradigms you've existed with are serving people and not serving you. And when you really realise that, you're not trying to fight against it, but you absolutely can't deal with it, which is one of the things, I guess, of getting older and wiser. It's just, you just don't want to put up with that rubbish. And I got tired of the joy and wonder of life being deleted from the equation of a good and wonderful life. It's never there. How many people did you make smile today? How many people did you make laugh? Your Uber driver or the person in Woolies, as long as security guard, because we have to serve ourselves. But how much did you contribute to the joyful experience of existence? There's no measure for it. Everything is quantified monetarily or status-wise. But to me, someone who makes you laugh is fantastic. And I have a granddaughter now who also encouraged me to realise just the joy of being a goose, that today I'm a princess. And when did we stop doing that? I am a prince. I shall be a princess today, and I shall wear a tea towel as a cape. And that, why don't we do that? I mean, that would be fun if I walked in here and you were Elsa from Frozen.
Yeah. That could have been arranged. Yeah. Yes. Next interview. I have an Elsa costume at home. Just saying. I wore it to my niece's birthday a few years ago. So, yeah, we could. We just needed to better coordinate our wild wardrobe options.
And I think that's what, in Traitors, we give people permission to be a different version of themselves, not the neat, polite version, but the funny, the crazy, come into this wonderland. I really vehemently believe that people with vested interests encourage us to ignore that part of our lives. Sometimes that person is your partner. Sometimes it's your children. Sometimes it's you yourself. We can be so inculcated with this notion of who we're meant to be and how we'll be popular and how we'll be happy that we forget that sitting with your girlfriends and having a giggle, that uncontrollable giggle, is the greatest joy.
Is there been a little bit of liberation time just to enjoy that aspect of it and be inspired and go, yes, actually, that's right. I'll just learn a few things from you and live in the moment and have some fun.
Absolutely. It's like being with a wizard, and anything can happen, anything is possible. And I know that people talk about the wonder of being a grandparent, but people say, because you get to give the child back. I mean, lots of grandparents would like to steal the child in their bag and take the child home. So I don't think that's true. I think it's a nice down pat, easy thing for people to say. I think the truth is it allows us to go a little bit slower and look at the absolute, just how amazing life is and the process of learning, because you're pointing things out. Look at the blue of the sky. Look at the stars. The fairies live under there. Let's go run in the rain. You're living at such a tactile, linguistically simple way, but conceptually expansive and infinite. It should be where we all are all the time, I think. But the opposite happens, and as we get older, our lives are so restricted. I really do think that if happiness were measured, I know that Bhutan measured happiness. I don't really know their method. I guess you ask people, are you happy? And they say yes. But if we could actually put a device on people, you're an 8 out of 10 today. Or if we went a different colour, that would be good. Like you're orange when you're really happy. We could nurture each other. We just have a different experience of life rather than a competition. Although that does sound like a competition now I say it.
So let's talk about some of the contestants on Traitors. They're fixtures from reality TV over the years. Gretel, what on earth is it like being in a room with people at the same time from The Bachelor, MAFS, Real Housewives? That's surely the very definition of drama.
They're not all incredibly dramatic, but they're all they all deliver amazingly, because people are full of surprises. And I think nowadays, if you go into a reality show, you're possibly competitive, hopefully pretty self-confident. And so that's a breed of human that can be quite apart from others. When there's a lot of big energy, I go small, like many people. Nicole Kidman, as you said, is quite shy. She and I are just identical in life. But a lot of us are happy for somebody else to have the stage. It's interesting because these people are skilled at playing games, and they're skilled at navigating being part of a team and yet an individual. That's a really highly developed craft that is required for this game. I'm sure civilians, non-reality people can do it, and non-celebrities. But these people do it very well, and they dress up to the nines, which is fantastic. Well, not all, actually. Some were quite badly dressed, now that I think about it. I should have given my wardrobe to some of them, but...
I also was thinking about the contestants that are on the show in light of that background that I was just talking about from reality TV, and the era that they've all come through different eras. We've got Dicko there, for example, which was really not that long after Big Brother had premiered, but there's people that have been in more recent incarnations, like I say, like Maths and Survivor. This is a very obvious question, but observing the people that came through only knowing an era of social media, you were saying earlier, YouTube, nothing existed in the early years of Big Brother, but some of the more recent names, that's where they live. That's their natural habitat. As a host, what are some of the biggest things that you've noticed in how people have changed coming through the format over the years?
The only thing I could say with absolute clarity is that when we first did Big Brother, people didn't know what they were getting into, so they were up for an adventure. They weren't necessarily looking for fame or followers, because that didn't exist. Maybe they were going for the money, but they were throwing themselves into a world where they had no idea what was going on. So that bar has been moved. Now people know what to expect. In theory, you know what to expect, but the actual experience of having cameras on you all the time, and in the Traitors, you do not know who you can trust. Mm-hmm. You don't suspect someone's lying to you. You pretty much have to assume they're lying to you. Then you have to trust your own instincts in your reading of people. Then somebody else will get in your ear and say that it's wrong. People don't sleep because they worry all through the night. We shoot this show very quickly. It's 12 episodes in 12 days. So, that's unheard of. So everyone's sleep deprived. Some people are free. People are free and wild from whatever their commitments they have at home, but other ones are missing home. What would I say about the huge difference? It's a different world now. It's one that I really kind of yearn for the nostalgic times, not so much in terms of reality TV, but I liked knowing that nobody was trying to steal my bank details. Can you believe when we grew up, we used to actually have a piece of paper and you'd write on it an amount of money, and then if you gave it to me but I wanted to give it to whoever, Mother Teresa, and I'd just write, please play Mother Teresa on the back of it. That was how our system worked. Now we've got to update because this person's after us and this person's after us, which of course feeds into the, are we safe, are we vulnerable? I'd better adhere and conform to the rules and expectations of society because at least I'm in this kind of caterpillar promenade that might keep me safer in a world I don't know. So these people on Traitors, I really admire because they're coming into a world that they know they don't know.
It's such a good point. I also was wondering whether your own experience of being a contestant and a cameo appearance on different shows over the years. The Masked Singer, for example. By the way, I didn't figure out it was you. You don't know that till now. You and your daughter were part of The Amazing Race a few years ago. You've seen it up close so many times. How was it being on the other side of that process?
It was fantastic. It's amazing to be powerless in life, and I think that's a really important understanding of how a lot of people live. as well, because the majority of the world has very little control. You can only, as we know, control your reactions to things and how you interpret experiences and responses from other people. The powerlessness was really confronting initially, but also because I've been in edit suites, I know how things might be edited, but that's not necessarily how they will be edited. And because I've been on stage and in green rooms and whatever else, I also know the bonding experience of participating with other people, but also with your camera and sound. So on something like The Amazing Race, they change your camera and sound people every day to try and avoid you getting too close to them because they become cohorts. I think that it's a really good opportunity in life if we actually stop and think, what's it like on the other side? What does powerlessness feel like? What does voicelessness feel like? That's a really good insight into helping understand and respect perhaps the reactions of other people who don't have as much power and might respond a little bit more desperately to something because they didn't all go to school with a barrister, a lawyer and a surgeon, or do you know what I mean? I don't mean to be rude about that, but everybody doesn't have that structure.
Absolutely. And it's also about empathy, isn't it? And just having a willingness to look at things from the perspective of another person.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the really great things about this show. It reminds us about humans being silly, humans watching each other, competing, but then again working as a team on the missions. It's really fundamental, away from the money and away from the props of human existence, is this actual human essence of how do I connect with you? How will we serve each other? Can we be a team? I love that. And I think with AI and whatever coming in increasingly in live performance, as you would know with many of the people you interview, is that being threatened or is that actually enhanced? And this is such a tactile show. And that's why the costumes and the making them with the art team the morning of the shoot and whatever was back to craft works, and I love that because it gives you a lot of happiness.
There was a great quote from you where it was something like, as life goes on, you're in your early 60s now, you see it a bit more like a sprint. And I thought it was equal parts inspiring and also exhausting, I have to admit.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about what that says about the energy that you're feeling.
I think that it depends on the relationships you're into, because the partner that you have can slow you down or have a different desire for what they want to do with their last decades. Fingers crossed they get those decades. Women in particular, from my observation, seem to really get stronger and more capable. With some of the things that we've carried through life, some of those are lifted now. And now it's, okay, what do I want to do? A lot of people at literary festivals are women. The women's trekking groups, the women's art groups, a lot more women volunteer than men necessarily do. And I feel like this is where we have a choice. I can either call myself old and slow down, or to me, I want to sprint to the finish line. I don't think of it in terms of a bucket list, but I'm still learning who I am. As I mentioned, I can dress myself. I'm a bit old to learn that. I can giggle uncontrollably. I have permission to do this. I don't need permission to do this. I can just do it. So I think particularly we live in a time where older people, the generation is criticised as though they're all pretty stupid. And pretty much, how on earth have they survived this long? Because they're all idiots. But to me, I feel like, when did we decide that we stop growing and learning about ourselves and life? At what age? I think sometimes we think it's parenthood, but it's not. Don't tell your children, but we really didn't know anything when we were raising them. Now we're starting to learn. And so I think it's that joy of discovering who you are and what rules you're going to break. And as you get older, you can get away with breaking a few more rules, because people they're either not paying attention or they're not listening, or they just think, fair enough, give it a go.
So nothing left to be ticked off the bucket list?
Oh, there are a million things.
What's a few of them?
I want to write songs and sing them. I paint. I want to get more into my real voice with that, because that is a very important thing with any art. I want to perform a bit more. I got too shy to do stand-up because I didn't know who I was. Now I just think, give it a go. And if it doesn't work, this is one of the things that I realised, is that people don't want perfection from you. They want imperfection. And I can remember saying many years ago, I even said it myself, and it took me this long to appreciate what I said. But it's all those cracks and crevices in you that allow people to hold on and cling to you and relate to you and comfort you through those. If it's a smooth round surface, they can't connect. I didn't realise that connection is through fallibility. It's not perfection at all. And my generation was raised to be superwomen. We had to have it all and do it all, and really we were crumpled heaps. But to be able to say to someone, how was last night? Oh my God, what a disaster. Tell me everything. That's a point of connection. You are not a perfect human being. You're just like me. And that's what I want to celebrate. Giving it a go. Not whether you succeed or fail, but giving it a go.
Gretel Killeen, it's been so lovely sitting down and chatting to you. Thank you so much for your time. I'm very excited to be seeing you back on TV soon.
Thank you. And thank you for spending this time together. I've loved it.